Hello and welcome to Unprofessional Engineering. My name is James.
And you got Luke?
Luke, today we're continuing our series on companies that built the world, and this time we're taking a look at Samsung.
So whenever I initially picked this one, or you picked this one, I can't remember who
Pretty
picked
sure
this
you
one.
did. You did a great job.
Is this like built the world? I feel like these cats are pretty new. So like some of the other ones we picked, these were like big companies that like these guys make phones, right? Isn't that what they do?
That's all they do, actually. In fact, that's the first product they ever made. Fun fact. That is not actually a fact.
In 1938, I think it was.
That is the date. But I guess if we're going to argue that, I mean, I feel like Amazon's a very new company, but boy, have they had a big impact, right?
Okay, well, maybe we need to change the title to our... Maybe it's like impactful companies, because like built the world, I think of like... Ford, GM, like that
companies
kind of thing.
That slightly influenced their local regions.
Perfecto.
Okay, that will be what we go with moving forward. Fun fact for you, Luke, to start things off. Samsung actually means 3 stars, with the number 3 representing, quote, something powerful. So the founder decided to use the name after his vision for the company as everlasting as the stars. So far, so good, right?
Well, yeah, unless like you're going off a 5-star rating, then 3 is terrible.
That's a really good point.
And
all of their products probably have these ratings, so
guaranteed
that would be bad. Their logo is just their name, right? It doesn't even have 3 stars in it, does it?
I don't think it. It might be one of those tricky logos where it's like it's hidden in there.
Yeah,
but I'm
maybe.
fairly certain it doesn't.
Yeah, well, maybe I should have looked at that. But I don't think I've ever noticed any stars related to it. But so be it. So you mentioned...
The A's and the M's have little points on them. Like it's like the A and then the M has 2 points. I don't know. Maybe there's like the tips of the stars. I don't know.
Sure. We'll go with that. How about that?
Alrighty.
Fun fact, the tips of the stars are on the A and the M.
I don't know.
Sure. So like you said, back in 1938, Samsung started out. And this was really interesting to me. It started out as a trading company, or more specifically, it was a food exporter. So if I understand correctly, Young Chul Lee started this company with 30,000 won, which sounds like a whole lot, but it turns out it's $27.
Which is crazy because his parents were really wealthy.
Oh, yeah?
Apparently, yeah, his parents, owned a lot of, land and were super wealthy. And the number I saw was $27. So
yeah,
at least we're close.
That's what I said.
You said 27? Oh, I thought you said 37.
Bucks.
My bad.
Oh,
my
no.
bad.
Well, maybe I'll spot him the extra 10.
Yeah, so that's the crazy part. So like you hear this like I always get agitated whenever you have like these trust fund kids that do things and they like make millions of dollars and start these companies. But this guy literally, Lee definitely did it. $27 and whatever, a couple $1 billion, right? We'll get into that a little bit later, but that's pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely absurd. So it kind of started out, like I said, food exporter. But what it was doing was like trading and exporting goods from all around its city in South Korea. Well, I guess it was just Korea at the time, but what is now South Korea. Samsung started out with about 40 employees, kind of like a grocery store. But it sounds like it's not like a grocery store like I would think of. It's not like people were just going there to buy their local, buy foods, but that they were actually trying to go a step beyond that and bring things in that might be a little more difficult to find or from other areas.
He was an importer-exporter.
Yes, exactly. Art Vandelay / Samsung Lee. Yes. Importer, exporter.
Oh, goodness.
So the next thing I have is 1948. Do you have anything before then you wanted to talk about?
Let me take a peek. No, nothing specific. So we'll see if your 48 lines up with what I got.
Okay, so 38's when they all started. Apparently it was in, I don't know how to say it as always, Taegu, Taegu.
Nailed it,
in Korea.
I'm sure.
Nailed it. That's right. Now this one I have. In 48, the company actually expanded to Seoul. So I got that one right, I think. But then the Korean War happened. So they were like, yeah, we're out of here. And so they just kind of pulled out of Seoul because that's no good. So, unlike most companies that I talk about during war times, Samsung didn't necessarily see a huge growth because of it. Now, normally, kind of like you said, we're talking about companies like Ford or BMW
Mm-hmm.
or Northrop or Boeing or companies like that. So, check out the episodes on those. And they usually can then be kind of converted into wartime needs, right? But Samsung, on the other hand, at this point was still kind of like all about food. So they didn't really get that big boost from the war. But afterwards, Mr. Lee started up a sugar refinery and then expanded into textiles, building the largest wool mill in Korea. So I feel like maybe he took kind of some of the openings that were left after the war and took advantage of that. Does that
Yeah,
sound right?
the other thing too that if you notice, so between like so the timeline that I was looking at had like between 38 and like 1970, so it was a pretty big
Okay.
window. But he went from dried fish to groceries and noodles, and
Yeah.
then he
Oh, big
started doing
noodles. Yeah.
wool. He started doing wool like you mentioned, but then he got into insurance
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
really
he's
it's
like
like
he's like, man, diversification seems to be great. This
yeah.
is really working out for me. So like insurance, retail, securities. I don't even know what securities are, but apparently he was into that. But yeah, really diversified the old portfolio for Samsung, right?
Yeah, and so that was probably, I think, mostly in the '60s when some of that big diversification happened,
Yeah.
and some of that stuff actually still exists. So I wanted to list a couple of
Mm-hmm.
the subsidiaries. So this is current. So a lot of the ones have been sold or traded away.
Mm-hmm.
But currently, there's Samsung Electronics, which does phones and that sort of
We
stuff,
know that one.
TVs.
Yep.
Uh, Samsung Engineering. So
Okay.
they have an engineering arm. Samsung T&C Corporation. These cats do construction management.
Okay.
Samsung Heavy Industries. They make ships, like big, enormous, like cargo carrying
Yeah,
ships.
and they're like a big time player in the
Big time.
shipping industry.
Big
Yeah.
time. Samsung SDS. This is IT services.
Hmm.
And then this is where it gets weird. Samsung Life Insurance.
Sure.
Samsung Fire and Marine Insurance, and something called
Fire and marine insurance. That is very
who
specific.
knows, and then a company called doesn't have Samsung in the name. I think I'm pronouncing it right. CHEIL Chile Worldwide. This is a
Sure.
marketing
Yeah. Nailed it.
organization.
Oh,
So
it's
I mean,
marketing.
yeah, so they got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They got 8 that they listed on their website, current subsidiaries. And the only ones that most people know are the electronics. And then you see Samsung on the ships. A lot of those big container
Oh,
ships have Samsung written on the side of them. So,
I
but
don't
they're
know if
into
I've
all
ever
kinds of
noticed
stuff.
that. Yeah, they really are, and this is again one of those things that I had no clue about. Like most things, I
Well,
had no idea about this. But talking about, I guess those are their official subsidiaries now, right?
mm-hmm.
But back in the day, they also had some other things going on in
Tons.
partnerships. So in the 1960s, like you were saying, Samsung got a little bit closer to what we know them for. So they still had their dried fish and noodles, which apparently were amazing. But they
Mm-hmm.
started getting into electronics and they formed a few different divisions. So Samsung Electronics Devices, Samsung Electro-Mechanics, which sounds pretty fancy, Samsung Corning, which I thought was really interesting.
Very
So
interesting.
check out our episode on Corning if you haven't done so already. I had no idea there was a partnership here. And then Samsung Semiconductor and Telecommunications, which that one really ends up just being a game changer for them,
Yeah.
I think. So all super cool, and this is all back in the 60s. And then around the same time, the Samsung Sanyo partnership began. Do you remember them? I remember like TVs and maybe some
Yeah.
other stuff with that branding on them, but I never really knew anything about
Yeah, so
them.
I think it was like the '70s. They started making black and white televisions
Yeah,
back in the early '70s, and I think that was what that partnership was working on.
yeah, that really got them in there. Plus things like microwaves and a bunch of other like consumer production kind of
Fax
stuff.
machines. I mean, they did everything.
Fax machine. Do fax machines still exist, Luke?
I think so. My wife, for her work, they have to send physical copies of
Oh my
things in a
goodness.
lot of cases because there's a lot of like legally type things. So she actually has to sign things and fax them occasionally. So
Interesting. Okay, so before we get into more of Samsung as we know it and love it today, let's take a break for a word from our sponsor.
I'm assuming Sony.
No,
See what I did there?
that was
I was
good.
being funny.
That was good. I just expected what you were going to say, and then that happened. Well done. No sponsor this week, which is really I blame you. But we do have some shout outs. How about that?
We better have some shout outs.
We do. I have 3 of them for you this week. We have Victor. I didn't even put Victor's last name in,
Good
but this
old
is going to
Victor.
be clear. Great time listening to our podcast. He's a mechanical engineer, so represent.
Woot.
And I love the stuff you share. He also asked for a shout out for his girlfriend Yolanda. So shout out to you. Way to put up with living with an engineer, or having an engineer in your life. I know that is not easy, or so
Can
I'm
be
told.
challenging.
Yes.
Can be challenging. I'm told every day how challenging it is.
Yeah, me too, and I just don't think I agree, but so be it. Brianne M recently started listening, and she's about to start at a fully STEM university this fall. And we're actually providing some insight into what engineering's actually like, maybe a little bit about the differences of the different types of engineerings that are out there, things like that. So it's a little bit scary, but I like it. Hopefully we have not misled you too significantly.
And if we have, blame James.
That's reasonable. And then the last one that I wanted to give a shout out to is Andy N, who found the podcast with his son, who is going for industrial and systems engineering.
Wow, he sounds
INSY.
really smart.
Yeah, going to Auburn University and would
Go
like.
Ducks.
Yeah, the I think they're mud ducks, in fact.
I'm fairly. They are mud ducks.
Yes, and would like an episode on what is industrial and systems engineering. And since I don't know what it is, that would be a great episode.
Well, we did industrial, right? Is this a combined degree?
I don't know. I would have to Google machine that.
We'll have to, yeah.
But I don't know what systems engineering is. And I don't know if our industrial engineering episode is out yet.
Oh,
So,
okay.
We'll have to take a look. So if it's not out yet, we did this just for you, Andy. That was how we roll. If any of you have a suggestion on something that you would like us to cover, if you'd like some of our amazing world-class unprofessional engineering stickers, if you just want to say hi, anything like that, how about you email us at unprofessionalengineering@gmail.com.
And make sure you like, subscribe, share, yell at any of your smart devices to play the podcast, and we'll be beamed right into your ear holes. It'll be amazing, trust me.
Man, there is no sweeter voice than mine going into someone's ear holes.
So said no one ever.
No one ever. Even my mom is like, yeah, about that.
Oh, goodness.
Okay, moving on, Luke.
Moving on.
1961, I'm backtracking just a smidge. Despite a political coup, charges against Lee for illegal profiteering, and a 1966 family scandal of smuggling, which is just great. The company grew and diversified into a bunch of other areas like paper products, department stores, and publishing. So then we mentioned how in like 1970, 60 to 70, they had that partnership with Sanyo. They started producing the first black and white TVs, like you said, and somehow this then expanded into shipbuilding as well, which is still going on today. But it also had to do with petrochemicals and aircraft engines. So again, it just blows my mind that you go from noodles to aircraft engines in 30 years. That's nutso. Over the next decade or so, Samsung also started to produce transistors, color televisions, refrigerators, office stuff, and air conditioners.
Yeah, for a while there, they were doing a lot of appliances, and they were just manufacturing them, and they were rebranded underneath other names. And then I think it was in the later 70s, so like 78, 79, where you started to see Samsung branded appliances, washers, dryers, those sorts of things. And now their stuff is like, it's the most expensive stuff at Best Buy. That's all I know whenever you're looking for stuff.
At my old house, I had Samsung everything, like well, not washer and dryer, but dishwasher, refrigerator, oven, that
Because
stuff.
you have all the monies. That's
Well,
why.
because I have all the monies, or because it was like the current bundle on sale at
Oh,
whatever place I went to buy it.
gotcha,
But it was
gotcha.
always very nice. It worked very well. So good for you, Samsung. When
Fun
do you?
fact.
Oh, go ahead. Let's
You
hear it.
ready?
Yeah.
In 1976,
Ooh,
Samsung
what's that?
sold its 1 millionth black and white television.
What? 76?
In 1976. So
Wow.
they started producing them in the early 70s. So in 6 years, they sold over 1 million of their own Samsung televisions. The crazy thing about that is, like, do you remember black and white? Did your parents, when you were, see, when I was little, we had a black and white because it was just an old TV, and it was one of those big. Do you remember those big, huge
Oh
console
yeah.
televisions? So you
I
had a
have had
console.
those, but they were
So
color.
so we had a black and white console that was big. It was a big black and white TV, and then we moved to a color TV, but it was a really small color TV because obviously the bigger the TV, the more expensive
Sure,
they were.
sure.
So for a while there, we had both. I feel so old saying that I watch black and white television. Holy
You
mackerel!
should.
I can't believe I just said that out
You
loud.
had to get up and turn the like knob to change the
Yep.
channel and
Yep. Oh,
question for
jeez.
you. Did
Shoot.
your I assume this is how all families work, but did your family kind of have like the we got the new TV. So the old color TV moves to this room, the TV from that room now moves over here, and that's the one that the kids can play video games on.
No, we
That's how
kind of did
mine
that.
always went. It was
So
like we got the
ours
hand-me-down for our video games.
Ours was the console TV became the stand for the new TV. So we had a TV on top of a TV because
Did it really?
those console TVs weighed like 700 pounds. It was like you got to be committed to move this thing. So then when we eventually did start upgrading TVs, one turned into my Nintendo.
Okay.
But yeah, the console became the
Oh my
stand for
gosh.
the next TV.
That
'Cause
is
they were so big.
amazing. That is so funny. Yeah, those were
I
crazy
remember
heavy.
my dad. We actually disassembled it to get it out because we couldn't remember how we got it into the room. It was so big.
Okay.
So we had to disassemble the TV, like take the sides off of the console. So
Okay.
it was fun.
Nice. All right, so back to the episode. In 1980, Samsung. Do you have anything between now and 1980?
No, nothing in particular.
We can always go back. We're not exactly
Yeah.
good at this. In
They got
1980,
the air conditioning in the 80s. I got
they
that.
did. Yeah, Samsung entered telecommunication hardware industry with the purchase of Hanguk's Jianja Tongsin.
Nailed it.
Thank you. Been practicing. Initially building telephone switchboards, which is kind of interesting, Samsung then expanded into telephone and fax systems, which eventually shifted into mobile phone production manufacturing. In 82, the Samsung Printing Solutions was founded, and this arm of the company delivered like a bunch of digital solutions and printing industry stuff. And in 83, the company started to produce personal computers. And in 84, Samsung sales reached 1 trillion won. Now, I don't know what that is, but trillion is big. But thinking back to how much he started with, this might only be $50. I don't
Well,
really know.
It might be a little more than $50.
Okay.
So unfortunately, in 1987,
Oh, yeah.
Lee passes away, and
Sorry,
then
Lee.
Samsung is then separated into four business groups, and those four business groups were electronics, engineering, construction, and high tech. So this was back in the late 80s, and then this is where all of that, the stuff that I think most of us think of Samsung. 1988, Samsung develops their own branded first mobile phone set. It was a big honkin' mobile
Like
phone.
a Zach Morris phone.
Exactly. 1993. Am I moving too fast?
I have 89.
Okay,
Oh,
shoot.
only thing I had for 89 I thought was interesting because it's always these partnerships that I have no understanding or no idea that they happened. In 89, Samsung teamed up with BP to form Samsung BP Chemicals, which of course sold chemical products in Korea. But again, two giant monster companies teaming up to do this stuff. No idea. Okay, continue on. Sorry.
So 1993, you mentioned, and these are kind of roundabout dates.
Yeah,
so they started to. I'm not going to say not focus on construction, but they really started focusing in the 90s on their electronics business. And then in 1995, this
Ooh,
is in
baby.
U.S. dollars, Samsung exports reached $10 billion. Not
That's
won. That's 10 billion bucks back in 1995.
that is almost podcast money.
Almost.
Almost. So good for you, Samsung, back in 95. Before we go on any further, Luke, I think it's only right if we take a break for this week's Luke's rant.
Okay, so here's my rant, and this isn't Samsung, so this is GE.
Ooh.
So not that long ago, I think you might have known, my refrigerator died. This refrigerator was as old as James. It was one of those beige ones, and it has like the wooden handle.
It had a good look to it.
Oh, and it smelled no matter how much you cleaned it, kind of refrigerator. So we got a new one, and here's my rant. It's a great refrigerator, super cold freezer, really great. It's one of those French door ice, freezer on the bottom one. Do you really think you need to change the water filter as often as they tell you? Like,
Are you asking me, or are you asking this rhetorically for our listeners?
I'm asking kind of rhetorically for the listeners, trying to get some feedback from you. But if you look on the Amazon machine, the legitimate replacement part is like $50. And this is water that I'm putting into my mouth hole, right? So you don't want to and I drink a lot of water, so you want it to be healthy. You read the reviews for the ones that work but are knockoffs, they're like $3. And I'm sure they're filled with like arsenic and like dog dirt, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And they get terrible reviews. So it's like, do I really need to replace this thing? Because, under quarantine, we're going through these filters like every 30 days. And it just is killing me. So I can't. It's a filter, right? I can't imagine. I don't know.
I don't want to admit how often I do or do not change my water filter, but if it is something that concerns you, I would suggest you do not drink water from my house. How about that?
Oh my goodness.
I really question that too, because that sucker is going to light up regardless of how often you use it. It's just on a timer, right? It's just like do it every month or something like that.
I'm sure there's some little servo in there that just says every 60 days maximum start blinking.
Yeah, just to annoy me. Like annoy this person until they change the filter.
So this might not be a GE thing. My guess is all brands of refrigerators do this, but mine is a GE, and it is so annoying. I've put like $200 in filters since I've had this refrigerator. So
you have podcast money. So
sorry, that's my rant.
Yeah, my Samsung did that as well. As I think I have a GE now as well. So, fun fact for you, Luke.
Shoot.
So, speaking of 1995, like you were just talking about, another cool thing happened then, other than making all the money, apparently. According to company legend, one of Samsung's first mobile phones did not work when it came out in 1995. So that's not exactly good. When Samsung's chairman, Kun Hee, found out, he visited the factory where the phones were made, and reportedly the entire inventory was lit on fire and disposed of. Wow. So all of their faulty cell phones were lit on fire.
That's some intensity.
If I remember correctly from one of our past episodes, I have to guess it was Corning, where one of the people found out that something was defective and they went in and just busted up the entire warehouse of stuff. Was that Corning? Do you remember?
These are all blending together, James.
Yeah. Well, we're going to say it was Corning. So whoever actually listens and pays attention, feel free to correct me if I was wrong about that. I did want to step back to when the founder passed away.
Okay.
Lee Byung-chul. His son took over. His name was Lee Kun-hee, so the person I just mentioned. I wonder if in Korea, maybe you have the same first name and maybe you don't, like I don't understand. Like,
I think it's like surnames. Like,
is it
like
surname?
Like that's their.
So
like
Lee
for us,
would be their
that's like
surname.
Your last name.
Okay.
Yeah. So Lee they say it first, but it's like Herzing and Herzing or Mahelsik and Mahelsik.
Gotcha. That makes sense. So So that was cool. So he took over. Now he's that spoiled brat that you don't like, right? He takes over daddy's
Exactly.
company. He's rich and he's going to ruin it.
He's a
But
jerk.
fortunately for them, he didn't ruin it, right?
Oh, okay, good.
So that was good for them. So Samsung Ventures was founded in 1999. This one I thought was interesting because it's just there to invest in startup companies, focusing on many of Samsung's own core services.
Yeah,
So
like
they're kind of
podcasts,
like podcasts. Samsung, if you would like to sponsor one of the hottest podcasts out there in the Pittsburgh area, why don't you hit us up at unprofessionalengineering@gmail.com.
for
Ooh,
sure.
okay. What do you have next? I'm in
Uh,
1999.
So I'm jumping way forward. So 90s, these cats are doing all kinds of stuff, mobile phones, TVs. In 2012, and this is mind-boggling to me. In 2012, Samsung has invested up until 2012. So they have facilities all over the world, and they have one facility in Austin, Texas, and
Yeah.
they invested $13 billion into that one specific facility, which is under the name Samsung Austin Semiconductor. This makes the Austin location the largest foreign investment in Texas and
Oh,
one of the largest single foreign investments in the entire United States.
no
So,
kidding.
yeah, that's pretty big. 13 billion with a B.
Yeah,
So
I never realized they were into semiconductors because whenever you talk about stuff like that, it's like Applied Materials
yeah,
or like whoever else. But I've never heard of Samsung associated with them. But apparently that's like a big part of their gig right
big
now.
time.
Did you see back in 2005, Samsung actually developed the first speech recognition phone? I thought
Mm-hmm.
that was kind of interesting. And then maybe less interesting, or at least less good for them, back in 2007, the Samsung Group was accused of political bribery and influence peddling throughout Southern Korea and the Southern Korean government. So, oops.
Yeah, and it's interesting. We don't have time to go into all the details, and
Uh-huh.
maybe we should do a show on all the legal challenges that companies
Companies have
face. But
had.
apparently, Samsung and Apple, there was a little bit of he said, she said, who made different things first from
Oh,
an
yeah.
operating system and a functionality standpoint. So apparently there was quite a bit of legal stuff that was going on between Apple and Samsung because I think per volume, Samsung makes by far the most cell phones out there. They literally have hundreds of varieties of cell phones. They have flip phones, they have smartphones, they have dumb phones, they have the Galaxy Note and all those sorts of things. So I think they make the most phones, like by far.
Yeah, I saw something about that. One of my fun facts I was holding on to just kind of give people an understanding of the size of this company. And it's not exactly cell phone related, like apples to apples. Ah, funny I choose that word. As of 2013, because we think Apple is a huge company, right?
Yep.
They make all the cell phones. They're giant. They're
We just assume
amazing.
they're the biggest, right?
Right. Samsung had over 460% more employees than Apple back in 2013. So they've even
Yeah.
continued to grow, with Samsung employing over 370,000 folks and Apple just 80,000. So keep that in mind as to just what a monster, huge company that Samsung is
Yeah, back in
versus some of ours.
2018, they had a revenue of $208 billion.
And they give none of that to us right now.
Well, that
We need a piece of
happens.
that pie, Luke. We need a
We
piece of
do.
that pie. Couple quick things to go through. I know we only have a few minutes left here. In 2001, they developed an early touchscreen prototype. As reference, the first iPhone came out in 2007. So back in 2001, they were developing that. I told you about the speech recognition stuff.
Mm-hmm.
In 2011, Samsung released the Galaxy S2. And followed by the Galaxy S3. So I guess that's Samsung's big cell phone. Is
Yeah.
that right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So are you an Android or no?
I
That's right.
am. I'm an
You and I bought.
iPhone guy. Yeah.
Yeah, I've had Android tablets. I've never had an Android phone before, and it just seems so difficult to me. And I know everybody that's an Android user
They're
says the
gonna hate
exact
on
opposite.
you right now. We're gonna
I
get
just
so many emails about
Oh,
this.
I know. It's just Apple's just like, and I know it's like Apple just tells you this is good, use it. It's kind of
That's
like
true. They do tell me
mind
that.
control.
Yeah, it absolutely
Um,
is.
but it's so easy. Like I've never had an issue with my phone other than Apple zapping a battery on purpose because they want me to upgrade. Other than that, it's good.
The batteries do. Oh, that is bad. But otherwise, I'm very happy with my iPhones and iPads and all of that stuff. Though I don't like Macs. So, the company made a bunch of other things where they were investing into medical technology, smart TVs, OLED displays, home automation, cloud solutions, payment solutions, and now they're also in the artificial intelligence game. So they're doing all the cool stuff as far as I know.
Oh, for
Uh,
sure.
I have a couple fun facts that I could go through if you're interested. Do you have
I'd
anything
love to
else you
wrap up
wanted to
on some.
cover?
In 2015, I'll just do a fun fact, and you
Heck
can add
yeah.
more.
Go
In
ahead.
2015, Samsung was granted the most U.S. patents than any other company in
I
the United
saw
States.
that. Isn't
Yeah,
that
so
nuts?
I feel like this is kind of like our boss used to like just buy websites hoping people would want to buy them later on.
I
My
think he
guess
still
is,
does.
oh, he still
I think
does.
so.
My guess is that's what Samsung's doing. Patent, 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 patent. If someone wants it, we'll sell it to them. That's my guess is what their strategy is.
Not a bad way to go if you can do it. Okay, a few fun facts. The company's excellent method for quality control is what makes it really successful at providing the best products across the globe, right? It applies what they call a line stop system, which is kind of interesting, where anybody can stop the production of a product at any time in the event that substandard products are discovered. So if I'm just like cleaning the floor and I somehow notice that a TV is coming through with like a busted up piece on it, I have the authority to stop the whole production and make sure that this problem gets fixed.
That sounds great in theory, but my guess is if the janitor stops the production on a multi-billion-dollar television line, he's going to be looking for a new job.
And hey, the janitor at Frito Lay came up with Flamin' Hot Cheetos.
He
And look at
did.
him now.
I know.
Samsung is very focused on creating as much as possible in house. Around 90% of the equipment is made in Samsung factories. That's crazy for a company of that size.
Like their own stuff?
Yeah.
That's pretty
Six,
cool.
This one's awesome. Six Flags and Samsung teamed up in 2016 to create North America's first virtual reality roller coaster, which used Samsung's VR equipment. They're now also working on a few other ones and VR games for roller coaster enthusiasts. So I don't like VR or roller coasters, so this is not for me. But,
They
good
make
luck
me
for all
barfy
of those.
McBarfs.
Yes, me too. And then the last one, because Samsung is just such a good company and out there to improve the world between 2009 and 2013, so it's been significantly more since then. The company had $4.8 billion invested in reducing 85 million tons of greenhouse gas emissions.
Oh,
So good for you making
way
the
to go,
world a little
Samsung.
better. Yeah. No idea they did all this stuff, Luke. How about you?
I assumed it was TVs and phones. That's about all I had.
What I really want to know is, do they still have the noodle shop open? Like, do they have the Samsung noodle place that I could go to and eat
That
at?
would be cool. That'd be like nostalgic, right?
Yeah. Like, if not, they should go buy the building back because they have a couple bucks. All right. Well, hopefully you all learned something about Samsung and its amazing history, noodles, and otherwise. If you'd like us to cover a topic, you want to tell us what a great job we do, if you want to give us a just giant amount of cash money to like sponsor an episode, why don't you email us at unprofessionalengineering@gmail.com. And until next time.
See ya.